The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to give everybody about 1 more minute before we get started. All right, so hello again. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Jenna and I work for Emerging Destinations. We represent cool companies and cool places. Today, I'm being joined by Raquel, who is the Director for Resource Management and Training at the Iwokrama International Centre for Rainforest Conservation and Development. So she's going to give us an introduction to Iwokrama and how they use a people-centered approach to conservation. Before that, I just want to take a quick minute to introduce our portfolio to you. One second, just need to change the slide here. There we go. So I'll just very briefly introduce to you our portfolio. I'm sure a lot of you are becoming more familiar with this, but in South America, we represent different companies in Patagonia, so in Chile, Argentina, Peru, of course, Guyana, which is who we will be talking about today. And then moving further north, we also have Costa Rica. Moving on to Africa, we have companies in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and South Africa. And then for our small ship cruising, polar cruises, we have the Canadian Arctic, as well as Iceland and Greenland. So, of course, you can feel free to email me about any of those if you have any questions or if you want to receive digital links or order brochures, anything like that. My email is at the bottom there, so feel free to reach out. A couple housekeeping items to go over before we start. This webinar will be recorded, so if you need to step away, don't worry. I will be sending the recording out to everyone tomorrow. Also, we would like to encourage everybody to participate during the webinar. So if you have a question or comment, anything, please feel free to send that over to us using the GoToWebinar control panel. Time permitting, at the end, Raquel will answer at least a couple of these questions. If not, we will make sure to send the answers to you in our webinar follow-up, so don't worry, you will receive those. On that note, though, I'm going to hand things over to Raquel.
Okay, so thank you very much, Jenna, and thanks for hosting this and for hosting this with me. My name is Raquel Thomas-Caesar, and I'm a forest ecologist. I'm a tropical forest ecologist, actually, but I am the Director for Resource Management and Training at Iwokrama, so I'm now fully really in a management position. And I'd like to tell you a little bit of this very special place where I work, and that's the Iwokrama International Centre for Rainforest Conservation and Development. It's a bit of a long word. I'll just be using Iwokrama. So first, I just want to give like a global contextual picture. And Guyana sits in a very important location known as the Guyana Shield. And this is one of 4 of the larger intact tropical forest spaces in the world. The others being, of course, Amazonia. We have Papua New Guinea, and then we have Central Africa, which is mainly the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, Guyana sits within this very important area, and that Guyana Shield is made up of 6 countries, or parts of 6 countries. So we have the 3 Guyanas. So French Guyana, which they speak French, Suriname Dutch, Guyana, which formerly was British Guyana, so we're the only English-speaking country in South America. We have part of Venezuela, part of Brazil, and part of Colombia. Now, Guyana itself is 87% forest cover, and that in itself makes it very special. And a lot of it's still intact. So the main areas that you would see there, the white spaces on the coast, where 90% of the population lives, and there's some savanna area there as well. But going further down, we have what is known as a very special place called the Rupununi Savannas, and that is a natural savanna as well. So Iwokrama is one of 5 protected areas in Guyana. And the other 4, which I'll mention first before I actually go in to tell you a bit more of Iwokrama. So we, starting from the north, number 1 there is Shell Beach, and this became a protected area in 2011. Kite Shore National Park is the oldest protected area in Guyana, and actually it's the 3rd oldest protected area in South America. That's at number 2. In the center of Guyana, which we call the green heart of Guyana, or some people say the navel of Guyana, that's Iwokrama, and that became legal in 1996. Then going further south, you have the Canopy Mountains, and then very south, we have what is known as the Canashen YY Community-Owned Conservation Area. That's the newest protected area. And it's owned, that's a territory that's owned by one of our indigenous groups known as the YY. We have 9 tribal nations, and they're the only ones, the only of that group that lives there. There are other YYs living in Brazil, as far as I'm aware, and they have connections with the trio groups and some of the other tribal nations in Suriname as well. So there you go. Those are the 5 protected areas. And the other 4 come under the management of the Protected Areas Commission, of which I was chair for the past 3 years of the board as a technocrat, more helping to give strategic direction to that organization. So you have Shell. I'll just give you, just so you could see a little bit of what it looks like. The Shell Beach really was developed to protect the 4 species of marine turtles, including the leatherback turtle. And then we have Kite Shore, which is the smallest but oldest protected area. It's a very, very special landscape, extremely beautiful. Then we have the Canopy Mountain areas. That's quite a large protected area, and they have a number of indigenous communities, I think between 18 to 22 indigenous communities associated with it. And then you have Canashen, and as I mentioned before, they own, this is actually the largest protected area, and they own all of that. I should mention to you that in Guyana, indigenous people have ownership rights to the lands that they live on, compared to some other countries that may not have. So now let's go into Iwokrama. So Iwokrama is a legislated protected area, and in 1996, we had the Iwokrama Act passed. Now, why we had to get a separate legislation is that there was no existing protected area legislation at the time, and that was passed in 2011. Anyway, it's also an international program, which I'll explain a little bit more in a few minutes. It's an intact tropical rainforest space. It's 1 million acres in size. It's large. For persons who think in metric, that's 371,000 hectares. It's an indigenous Makushi word, which means place of refuge, and it's named after this mountain range, which the highest peak goes to about 1,000 meters high. There is a story that, in the old days, they had intertribal warfare between some indigenous communities, and the Makushi people would flee into the mountains, these Iwokrama mountains. So it's said that in Makushi, it means place of refuge because of that little legend story that I just said. Now, how did we come about? In 1989, and this is even preceding the 1992 big Rio convention that they had in Brazil, our government, then led by President Desmond Hoyt, made this offer at a Commonwealth meeting of this space of 1 million acres to be a place for research and development, looking at how we can use but also conserve areas of tropical forest. So that offer was made in 1989, and then the Iwokrama Act was later passed in 1996 by President Jagan, establishing Iwokrama as a center, the International Centre for Rainforest Conservation and Development. Now, as you can see, that the Iwokrama Foundation is based on strategic partnerships. So at the highest level, you see you have the Commonwealth Government of Guyana Partnership. And with that, through the Commonwealth, Prince Charles offered, or he was asked, and he accepted to be the patron, and he's been the patron for quite a while now, And this is him when he visited Iwokrama in 2000. This is his visit where he was meeting some staff. At the time, David Castles on the left was our Director General. He's meeting some of our rangers and so on. And he hasn't come back since, but his son visited and Prince Harry visited in 2016. Now, how do we talk about this concept of conservation, which encompasses the whole notion of sustainable use? It might be strange for a few people, but what we did is that we had a long 2 years of actually looking at how we should zone the area. And we used quite a number of criteria. So you're looking at archaeological sites, places of spiritual significance, biodiversity. You have to ensure that you look at some aspects relating to genetic diversity and so on, where the rivers were, where the access areas were, and so on. You'll see a red line running through the map there. That is actually a trail. We call it a road. It comes from Georgetown. It bisects the protected area, and it goes to Lethem, a town called Lethem, which is bordering Brazil. So here you can drive from Georgetown and get access to Brazil, Venezuela, and other parts of South America. So after we looked at the scenarios, we had consultations within the indigenous communities, government officials, Guyana Forestry Commission, and so many other agencies, and we came up with this particular scenario. And the wilderness preserve, that's the part in green, is actually an area where which serves as a control area for us to look at our impacts, while the other area, which is seen as the SUA, or the sustainable use area, is the area that we can conduct our sustainable use activities, some of which I'll tell you about a little later. So as the title says, people-centered approach. Now, when we talk about sustainable management and conservation, it fundamentally comes down to people. People are the one who ultimately care or they destroy. So really, it's about how people manage people and how people manage resources at the end of the day. And if you manage resources well, those things that we worry about will be taken care of. So the tapirs, the jaguars, this very, very crucial plants and so on. If we manage these well, and if people's needs also are taken care of as in terms of livelihoods, I think that is where you have an impact on maintaining your resources for the future, which in itself is a form of conservation. So aside from all the other strategic partnerships, I mean, we work with donors, we work with universities, we work with zoos, we work with a whole array of partners, corporate partnerships and so on. One of the most important partnerships that we have is that co-management partnership we have with the 20 indigenous communities that we collaborate with. Strategically, through a memorandum of understanding, but even more strategically through what is known as a collaborative management agreement. And that gives us our governance structure of how we operate. So we see this 1 million acres of forest as the ancestral place of the Makushi people. So of course they have to have a say in how it is managed. So even at the level of the Iwokrama board, we have an indigenous representative. And then we work with this body that is made up of all the leaders of all the 20 communities known as the North Rupununi District Development Board. So you might hear me say NRDDB, and it refers to that. And it involves women leadership, youth leadership, and so on. There's a very interesting concept. And there's certain commitments that we have as a organization as well. So for instance, people from these communities have first rights to jobs at Iwokrama once they have the qualifications for such. One of the reasons that we need these co-management agreements and partnerships is, for instance, this in 2015, we had the El Nino. The El Nino was like a continuous El Nino for a few years, and we had areas that were susceptible to drought. So there was an area upstream of Iwokrama where we have the Essequibo River, and there was a pond that was drying out, and they had these 2 large Iwokrama with 27 young ones. So here is a collaboration between the North Rupununi District Development Board, 2 of the villages, along with Iwokrama, going to rescue these fish, and along with scientists who have been working in RIWA, Dr. Leslie, we were able to actually rescue these fish and put them into the main body. Now, this fish is very important. It's actually an endangered species. It's the largest freshwater scaled fish. You always have to put in that scaled fish in the world. That's known as the Arapaima. So it's very important when you see this image that the whole concept of people working in harmony with the environment, and people that love and care for the environment. I think that's a very important message that we want to get over to everyone. Now, I did tell you about the road. I just wanted to tell you about the concept. Now, Iwokrama was developed with the concept of having the road because of the fact that we were going to go into business activities as well, right? So this is what the road looks like. Yes, that's one of our jaguars. And there's a good chance to see jaguars in Guyana, but a chance, not a promise. But sometimes during the rainy season, the road can get like what it looks like in the upper photographs. It can be a challenge during rainy season. In Guyana, we have 2 seasons. We have dry and wet. And during May, June, July, sometimes even going into August, you have a lot of rain. And so that's the impact you see there. Iwokrama has 2 lodges, but this is our main site where we work from. This is the Iwokrama River Lodge and Research Center. From here, we also launch a number of tourism activities, but it's really our operational site. So, you know, for a number of our business activities and other activities, working with communities and so on, this is the main area that we work out of. We do have a small office in Georgetown, so that helps us to keep, you know, send in supplies, deal with our accounts or auditing and those kinds of things. But this really here, this is the heart of Iwokrama. We do have a smaller lodge, which we work in partnership. As I said, we are testing different models of governance and business. This lodge is known as the Atta Lodge. It's no longer known as the camp. It is a campsite, but it's known as the Atta Lodge. And this is managed with between 4 of us. So we have Iwokrama, we have Wilderness Explorers, which is a tour company here, based here. We have a Rockview Lodge, which is not a lodge in the savannas. And then we have Sarama Village, which is an indigenous village. That's one of the 20 communities that we work with. So this is a very interesting partnership. It's another beautiful lodge. And at this site is where we have one of our star attractions, which is the Canopy Walkway. And I'm not going to be telling you too much about our tourism because we're going to have another lecture on the 30th from one of our other staff on that. This is me with my team of rangers at the top. We're monitoring a number of things. I'm in charge of the overall monitoring program for Iwokrama. So we have a very strategic monitoring program that is based on our management plan. So we look at biodiversity, we look at things like water quality, weather, traffic. We have to observe traffic passing through the reserve. Is it changing over the years as the road gets better, more access and so on? Infrastructure. I must say the road also, it's under the purview of the government. So we partner with the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. So anytime there's a problem with the road, we'll need to inform them. We know solid waste, we have to look at that. And also we have to look at our impacts on the communities as a social monitoring. At the bottom is a jaguar from one of our camera traps, some research that we were partnering with Dr. Matt Hallett. A very important aspect of developing leaders within the area, it's working with wildlife clubs. So we partner with the communities and working with kids. And this is our rangers in particular work a lot with these young people. Now, the young man with the scope, his name is Micah Davis. He's our head ranger currently. And he started as a wildlife club member, and he's now grown, and he's young still, but he is really, and all our rangers have shown a lot of expertise and so on, including the use of their traditional skills. And he's working with kids from the village nearby, and the other rangers, we're working with other kids. We see there also one of our Peace Corps volunteers that worked with Fairview Village a few years ago, now based in New York. So let's talk a little bit about the money. Conservation is expensive. And many people, we don't really address this frontally. We talk about saving the forest and saving the fish and saving the jaguar and so on. But really, how do you pay for it? I mean, if you think about it, if you don't have money, fundamentally, if you don't have the cash flow to do this, conservation is just really a conversation. And you have to make it happen. And that's why Iwokrama, the intention of setting up Iwokrama is to show that you can also set up some sustainable businesses. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our sustainable timber business. I won't do too much on the tourism because we're going to have a talk on that. We do our training as well. And you can see, if you look, the purple bit, that's our timber earnings. The green 22%, that's our tourism earnings. And this is 2018. We have a small amount coming in from training. Of course, we don't charge students and so very much because we understand that students and researchers always have a budget. And we have merchandising, but then the other set of funding comes from the other incomes, such as government funds, government of Guyana, and project proposals that we write. And we always have to be innovative and innovating. We write a lot of proposals to keep that cash flow because we cannot depend on one income source. You really have to innovate, and also from corporate sponsorship as well. That's another area that we work with. So the whole thing about how you manage a protected area in terms of the funding is a very interesting one of itself. And we have to think of innovation. As for instance, now we have COVID. You know, a lot of things are happening with that money that could probably go to conservation. So we have to become even more innovative to keep these organizations and protected areas running. So there's the king of the jungle, the real king of the jungle, one of the Iwokrama jaguars. And the businesses I'm going to talk about are the sustainable forestry, ecotourism, and learning services. Now, why do we do timber? So some people say, oh my gosh, you're cutting trees in Iwokrama. Yes, we cut some trees. It's very sustainable, and we're forest certification. We have FSC International certification. So remember when we talk about Iwokrama and research and development, we also want to show models of business. And within these models of business as well, we pattern our research off of this so we can share lessons. So sustainable forestry, yes, is one of our main businesses. On the left at the bottom, it's some training we were doing with the Fairview Village who wanted to learn more about how you measure the logs and so on. So that was a special training session for that. This is our Canopy Walkway and our two lodges, as you would see there, and you'll get to learn a bit more about what we do, the packages we offer on the 30th. This is Turtle Mountain and our Turtle Mountain Camp, where a lot of students go there, but also there's some tourists who, instead of staying at the lodge, they usually want to have an experience in the forest, in hammocks and so on. And I call it, I say, you know, wanting more of an organic experience with the forest. This view here is a beautiful trek we have called Turtle Mountain Trek. And when you get up there, this is what you see, overlook the forest. It's stunning. And I recommend anybody coming here, aside from Canopy Walkway and so, to visit, do the Turtle Mountain Trek. In terms of learning services, we do training as a business. So we do ranger training, tour guide training, things related to collaborative natural resource management. And we can do specialized courses such as related to forestry, botany, wildlife, birding, and so on. The unit also provides services for researchers. We have an intern and volunteer program, as well as we host groups, university groups, student groups, and so forth. So these are some of the students that have visited us over the years. Earth expeditions, we have the natural resource management interns. There we have our head ranger and a student showing one of our master students how we set up our camera traps to do camera traps, faunal capturing of photographs to do faunal research. Oh, so let's get in a little bit more of the excitement. What do we have? The Iwokrama Forest is an amazing laboratory. There's so much that you can do there, and I'm getting in here more into what we have and into the science and the research aspects. So we have an estimated, you know, Iwokrama, if you look at it from percentage-wise, it only makes up 2% of the forests of Guyana, right? So in that 2%, look, you can come in there and you can see over close to 500 species of birds. I'm not going to say you're going to see all of them one time, but close to 500 species of birds. We have over 400 species of fishes, lots of plants, Lots of mammals, quite a bit, 58% of the mammals that you can see in Guyana we found here. I remember there's still more research to do so that we can increase these lists. We haven't explored all of the Iwokramas yet. So that's a little bit about on what we have and our biodiversity. And over the years, we've done a lot of research. Of course, the initial, when we are phase 1 of research at Iwokrama, we had to do the surveys, flora and fauna in particular, and that helped to inform how we planned, how we did our zoning, how we strategically worked within the different parts of Iwokrama, where we developed certain infrastructure and so on, including where we set our timber sites and so on as well. So we've done things related to forest utilization, including timber, non-timber forest products. Non-timber forest products are those products that are not from the tree of itself. So it could be vines, it could be things like resins, oils from seeds, fruits, forest fruits, and those kinds of things. We've also worked in community forestry. In terms of bioprospecting, years ago, we worked on a fungi within the leaves of the plants. We've done work in the Rupununi with wetlands, you know, social research, a number of different things, and also alternative business development, because business is part of the thing that we are involved in. And the whole concept too of sustainability involves the 3 pillars, which is the economic, the people part, or the social, and the environmental aspects. Those are the 3 pillars of sustainability. So, you know, if you coming here, you have the opportunity to really discover new things. So this, for instance, in 2013, a new frog was discovered in Iwokrama, and to date, over the past 10 years, we actually have 4 new species to science. I'm a forest ecologist, but I more am linked to plants, and the tree that you see there is one of the studies that I worked on. It's called crabwood, the common name, or carapa, that we discovered a new species of within a genus within Iwokrama. That's a cute bat. That's a new species as well. The frogs, a lizard, and a beetle, and some other animals. So the second phase of research we started so we had the first phase, which was a baseline data collection, and we had a second phase where it was started in 2009. We did some biodiversity work along with a very strong climate and hydrology component. And now we have a new phase, which runs from 2019 to 2024. As you can see there, the 5 areas of focus. So you have climate and forest, you have resilience and livelihoods, natural capital, heritage, collaborative management, social innovation, and biodiversity and sustainable use conservation. And cross-cutting this, you have leadership and capacity building, along with looking at policies and hoping to have an impact on policies and society at large. So this is, I'm going to talk a little bit about the kinds of research we do. So since for 10 years now, and so this year was supposed to be the 10th, but thanks to COVID-19, the expedition could not happen this year. And we were really looking forward to celebrating our Operation Wallacea partnership 10 years this year. They come every year and they mainly focus on faunal collection of data within Iwokrama Forest and the Sarama village. So this is collecting consistent data with different groups, so herps, the snakes and the frogs and so on, the birds, some insects, the beetles, small mammals like bats and so on as well. These are things that we're looking at, and looking at different locations within Iwokrama so that we can have consistent data. And this is not just a whimsical research. This actually fits into our monitoring system, and it was developed with us. So it can help us to inform for long-term monitoring and management of the Iwokrama Forest and Sarama Village. These are some University of Guyana students, and they're working there with Dr. Burton Lim, who is the foremost, I think, expert on small mammals. He works with the ROM, the museum in Canada, Ontario, Canada. Here we have one of our tour guides, right, slash, you know, at the time he was helping with the expedition, and he was working with a student, and they were learning how to do bird nest netting. So how we study birds. And please note, we don't hurt the birds. We release them when we're finished. Again, we don't hurt reptiles and snakes of this kind as well. This is what we call the anaconda. These three researchers are friends of mine. They were all on the Operation Wallacea expedition. As you see there, please don't try this at home. You see a big snake, please leave it if you're not trained to deal with it. But this is just one of the exciting things if you want to be a biologist, if young people are looking. These are some of the things that you can do. I stick to plants, but my friends here, they like this kind of excitement. Then we have other universities, and so we partner with. So we have the University of Guyana. We have a PhD student at the top, Ariane. She's doing work, some faunal work. Then we have another Guyanese PhD, but she's doing it through Purdue University in the USA. She's looking at green heart seeds and fungi. And she's found that there's a fungus attacking the green heart seeds. Now, green heart is endemic to Guyana. And it's a very important study and something that she's discovered. So we're looking at that very keenly. Then we have our friends from the Lyell, Ryan, and from the Lyell Centre, Harriet Watt University in the UK. And we work with a number of other universities. Ryerson University in Canada, they came, they were working on film and so on. And there are a number of in the UK. We work with some other universities in the UK and so on. So there are a number of, and schools as well. We have schools, both international and locally, that come to learn about conservation, how we do it at Iwokrama. So you got a peek at what our cabins will look like. You'll get a much better view of them next week. I'm not going to show them, but this here is the facilities we have for researchers, understanding that researchers and students cannot pay the prices, don't have a budget to pay the prices that you would have to stay in a cabin like regular tourists would. So we have these special facilities for student groups and also for researchers when they come to stay at Iwokrama. There's Dr. Lim again with my young biologist friend Mishak, and they were doing something with bats there, if I can remember. I think they were preserving some bats. Now, this here is something that I cannot finish this presentation without talking about this, because without traditional knowledge, Iwokrama would never be able to manage the resources in the way we do and have the successes the way we do. So it's very important for us to talk about how we value traditional knowledge along with conventional science or Western science. This is Auntie Paulette Alicott. She is the head of the Makushi researchers, and Iwokrama helped with the NRDDB to establish this group of many women, and they do research in livelihoods, traditions, skills. They also train in counseling, so they can counsel people anywhere from domestic violence to alcoholism and so on. So they're a very important aspect. But how do we use traditional knowledge? Twin it with science to get you the best management solutions for how you manage an area like Iwokrama. This is one of our rangers. He was much younger then, and he's actually teaching a master's student here true knowledge he would have learned from his parents and his grandparents about hunting and hunting skills and how he's making the arrow. I don't know if that's poison he's putting on the arrow. Well, some sort of poison that would help, or if he's actually fashioning the arrow. But there she is listening very intently, and she's from the Miami University, Ohio group, the Earth Expeditions. Then, this was one of the most exciting training that we did with the kids through the First Ladies program and STEM Guyana. STEM Guyana is a wonderful group of young people who go around the country teaching kids, children, about robotics. Now, this is Fairview Village. It's the one village that exists and owns land within Iwokrama. These kids never, ever heard of robotics, touch her, and within 4 hours, they had built a tarantula and some other piece of equipment. They learned to fly drones and so on. It was, I think, from how I observe, as one of the most exciting experiences that they had. But here is it. They twinned their knowledge as well. So they developed a tarantula, which they see, and made it into a robot. So how you bring together traditional skills and modern learning is really important, because innovation can come from these communities, can come from the forest. You know, if you've ever heard of biomimicry, that is a way where you can use nature to actually help us to live better in this world. And here I mentioned Prince Harry, I just wanted to show him. I don't think he's going to maybe coming back now with his new portfolio, but it was certainly a pleasure to have him. He was representing his father, Prince Charles, who is the patron of Iwokrama. There's a CEO there with the minister at the top, with the minister and Vice President Sidney Alcock, who is from Sarama Village, actually. He's now in the government. And then we have in Scotland, and she's the head of Commonwealth, and she visited a couple of years ago. So I just wanted to highlight that. So we're coming to an end, but I love these t-shirts because, we say Iwokrama. We're just a little space. It may be big for us, but it's a little space in this big world. So I like the whole notion of that motto, small step, big change, because that little space, that 2% forest within the forests of Guyana is generating so much information and knowledge about how we work with people, how we partner, how we discover new things. And we hope that we can share this with the world. So, I hope that you can join us in the future. We have a Facebook page, Iwokrama International Centre for Rainforest Conservation and Development. We have Instagram. We're on Twitter. You can email me. You could come as a volunteer at some point if you're interested. We also have a number of new videos. We have a new video actually called Green Heart on YouTube. I would encourage you to go and look at that, and that will give you more of a visual representation of what we're doing. But there's my contact. You can contact me at that email, and you can visit all of our websites as well. And I would just like to also acknowledge many of the photographs that I have in there. Many are mine, but also they are from other friends and other persons who have visited Iwokrama. So I think that's about it from me. I'd like to bring back in Jenna at this stage. And if you have any questions, we can look at that. So I think we have about 25 or 20 minutes more. Jenna, are you there?
Yep, I'm here now. Thank you so much, Raquel. Your passion and knowledge of conservation is very inspiring. It was very well done. So thank you for taking the time to do that presentation for us.
Thanks for allowing me. I really appreciate it.
If anybody has any questions, you can feel free to type them through now. There are a couple here, Raquel, that I will ask. A couple here are just more general. So the first one is, what is the population of Guyana, and what religion do the non-Indigenous people practice?
That's a very good question. Our population is less than 1 million. So when I say 90%, think about it, 90% live on the coast. Our Indigenous population, it's about 80,000, I think. It was 65. I think it's going towards 80,000 now. We have 3 main religions in Guyana. That's Hinduism, Christianity first, Hinduism, and Islam. And we are very respectful to various religions here. In fact, we have religions for all the holidays. We have 2 Hindu, 2 Islamic, 2 Christian holidays in Guyana. Indigenous people tend to more be Christians, but there is one group known as the Akawayo Nation, and they have a religion which is called Alleluia, which is an indigenous, I think a little bit mixed with Christianity. I don't really know much about it, but that is an indigenous religion here.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Raquel. We're getting some more questions in now. So the next one.
And our population is about 780,000 people.
Wow, that's definitely less than you would think when you think about it.
It's small.
So for another question that just came in here, how are the remote communities dealing with the threat of the pandemic?
Okay, that's a very good question. I think I expected that one. Now, the region where we work is the one region that has had no outbreaks. The epicenter right now is Georgetown, the city. There are a few, we have 6 deaths so far, and I think the last check was about 60 infections, a number of people in quarantine. So we've been really trying to contain it. We haven't had a death for a number of days, which is good. Now, the communities, since a month ago, when we really learned that we needed to shut down and so on, or 5 weeks ago, started just closing off their communities. They put up gates. You have, if you want to go in, in fact, I think some communities are only allowing persons from the communities in. And I think even for us from Georgetown, I implore the people from Georgetown just stay in Georgetown and don't even try to venture into any communities at this stage, just because we cannot afford for an outbreak in any indigenous community in Guyana. I understand there's an outbreak in one community in French Guyana, I was told, because somebody came back from France and that village is now quarantined and so on, so they're looking at that village. But we don't want that to happen in Guyana as well.
So to kind of add on to that question, what are some of the future plans for engagement of the local communities?
Okay. Well, well, we are very engaged with the local communities, but certainly in terms of doing more research, helping with more business development, a number of other communities, not only within or associated to Iwokrama, are showing interest in tourism. And I know tourism is pretty dead at the moment, but we're going to get back there. I'm very positive about that. So, how do they look at ways that they can enhance their livelihoods in a strategic manner that also respects their traditional knowledge, that they can also maintain their traditional knowledge. We don't have an issue with communities also, I don't think, with using their resources, because we have to use our resources, but we all need to use resources responsibly. So along with those kinds of plans, also plans for capacity building in relation to like filmmaking. We have this project which we partnered with Holloway University in the UK, Open University in the UK, and another institution which Birds and Fowls Foundation, I can't remember the exact name. And what that project did is working with the North Rupununi District Development Board, actually trained a cadre of young people to be filmmakers. And so they do the camera work, they do the editing, they produce these films, and these films are documenting and looking for solutions within the communities of themselves, and they're doing it themselves. Also using cameras to do photographs, where the communities themselves can do photo stories. It's always more powerful when young people from the indigenous communities can look at their leaders within a video, talking to them about preserving their culture, talking to them about farming, how you do this farming, and they will always have that video to look back at. It's a very important tool for documentation. And I don't think it should be only for indigenous communities in Guyana. It should extend to other ethnicities here. Guyana is very mixed. We have the Afro population, Indo population. We have some Portuguese, Chinese. It's quite interesting mix. And I think even Western societies and more developed societies, you can use these tools for education purposes, but also for history and recording history and keeping that for a lifetime.
I love the idea of that project so much. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes, I'm going to share that. I'm going to share more with you for sure.
And so just for time-wise, because I do have a lot of questions in here, but we will save most of those and answer them in the follow-up emails. So I have just one last question for you right now, Raquel. That is, now you talked a lot about the Iwokrama and the area, but is there any sort of collaboration with the other protected areas of Guyana?
Yes, well, we do collaborate with the Protected Areas Commission, and not because I was chair of the board alone, but in terms of exchanges, especially with capacity building and training, we do have exchanges. So for instance, if they have a program, they would invite our staff. If I have a training program, if we have a training program at Iwokrama, because I'm in charge of training, I would invite like their rangers and so on. So for example, I myself did botany dendrology training last year, October, and 7 staff and rangers from Protected Areas Commission participated. We've had, for instance, rangers and staff from the PAC participate in our Operation Wallacea expeditions. They have had capacity building workshops and things like education and environmental education and so on, where they have invited us. We also they've invited us also to what we say like workshops. For instance, there was a tourism workshop in Suriname. last year, November, which I was able to attend with another staff, our tourism manager. There was also one on mining, which I attended with my head ranger, because one of the challenges that we face at Iwokrama is actually on our border is illegal mining, and it's something that we have to keep an eye on. So things like illegal mining, illegal hunting, illegal logging, and so on. That's why we have to keep monitoring the area. So those are areas that we have to think about, and so on. So yes, we do partner, and we partner very strongly with the Protected Areas Commission, but we also partner with the Guyana Forestry Commission, the GGMC, or the Guyana Geology and Mines. If we have a problem with miners, we have to go in with the Mining Commission people. If we have a problem with over-harvesting fish, we have to go with the fisheries people. If there is a illegal logging in Iwokrama, we have to contact the Guyana Forestry Commission people. For research, as the Environmental Protection Agency. So when we're talking about strategic partnerships, it's on all levels. But in terms of monitoring, we really need to work with these agencies, because they have the mandate to deal with these kinds of illegal activities.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Raquel. I know we have so many other good questions that have come through, but we will get Raquel to answer those, and we will email them out tomorrow. So that's everything for today. Thank you, Raquel, again for your time, and everybody for joining us for this webinar today. It was very interesting to have this scope, this perspective on Guyana conservation. So
I put it back your email there, Jenna, so they email you as well if they need to have any further information on emerging destinations. I'd really like to thank you. And I look forward to seeing this audience again, not me, but my colleague, Caroline Marcus, who's going to talk about our tourism on the 30th. I guess same time?
Same time. Yep, same time next week. We will be doing another webinar.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful Thursday.
Thank you for joining, everyone.